Look at this. We have a reptilian being, a human silhouette, and we have DNA strand. All of this is connecting what I would consider both of these together. So this is connecting this with here, and this is connecting there. And the question is why? And we're going to answer that in a few minutes as I go through this particular lecture and what we're doing. So pay a close attention because see, most people see this and they think it's science fiction. They think it's a conspiracy theory because I'm going to break it down. I'm going to break it down for you in all of these different areas that we're going to be going to. But let me take you back to this particular image because a lot of people, again, think that this is a conspiracy theory. Now, I've been studying the UFO stuff. I've been studying the reptilian contact for years, and I've ran across the same thing. I've been running across the same thing, ancient texts. We're talking these ancient sites and stuff where they've been getting artifacts. And then you're talking about and stuff that the mainstream media, they don't want to touch, all right? They don't want to touch it. I walk around with this shirt that I'm wearing now. Ask me anything about the reptilian agenda. And if you're watching this on TikTok, it's in our TikTok store or YouTube channel, stuff from there. But listen, today I found something that I'm going to go over with you in a minute. It's not a theory. It's not a rumor. It's a peer-reviewed archaeological discovery that may be the oldest physical evidence in the world of reptilian contact, okay? Reptilian contact on this planet. And they knew about it. They've been knowing about it. This has been hidden from a lot of people that we're going to be going through. And I first thought it was just another myth. Then I looked at the evidence, and I'm going to talk to you about that evidence here. And we're talking about a cave 70,000 years ago that was found here in Africa. Okay, it was a cave 70,000 years ago in the Botswana, Africa. In this particular cave was a carved reptilian figure, and it was a hidden control system that we're going to get into. Now, I want you to stay with me. All right, stay with me because we're getting ready to connect some dots. And if you're into the reptilian stuff, I'm gonna give you some proof, a conversation. Now, this is gonna blow a lot of people away because it's gonna tap into religion. And I know the problem with that, okay? And I know where we're gonna go with this, but documentation beat conversation. So we're gonna get it. And let's go into it right now. What we wanna look at is 5 nodes that I'm going to be taking you down today. We're going to start here and what I will say some of the stuff, the cave itself. I'm going to give you a little talk on that. Then we're going to move up in here to the control system, the same control system that's being today, that's being used to control. And we know it's called religion, right? In some cases, all right? Then I'm going to take you all the way back from here to here with a little more evidence, a little more things. And once again, this is things that they found, which was true, and they hid this from us. And then we'll go over here to this guy here. Some of you know who it is, but I'll talk to you. And then I'm going to tie it into our today culture about reptilians, shapeshifters, our government, all of this stuff. So we're going to go through a lot of that. So let's get down into this. This is Python Mountain. Now, this is kind of an outlay, but you can Google this yourself. You can go and kind of find out what they call it, Python Cave. So Google Python Cave, all right? And now here's the part that stopped me cold, because see, at first, like I said, I thought it was just another ancient astronaut or ancient astronaut stories that we'd be hearing about or something interesting, but it was unverifiable, right? Then I looked at the source, and the source went all the way back to the University of Oslo. This is way back in 2006. They've been knowing this since 2006. And the archaeologist, her name is Sheila Colson. And again, if you're watching this on our YouTube, there will be a link in the description to the peer review that we're going to be talking about, all right? But anyway, published in a peer-reviewed journal. And this is not French research. I've been down a lot of rabbit holes before. I've been down a lot of rabbit holes. And one of the things that I will tell you that we're talking about here is this. Number one, this is the oldest, make no mistake about it, this is the oldest ritual site on Earth, all right? All right, on Earth. That should tell you enough right there. Think about that for a minute. It's the oldest ritual site on earth. We're talking way before the Romans, well before the Anunnaki or Egyptian, and well before anything that any type of religion was started. In fact, once we're done with this, this is where it started. This is how we got to where we are today, from the Vatican. You know about their snake hall and all of that stuff. It came from here, all right? And again, this is not something they wanted. But what the kicker is this, though. This was probably used only, as I will say, it was used only for worship, nothing else. It was used for worship. It wasn't used for nothing else but worship, all right? And we already know we was installed, our DNA, we have that worship gene. So inside this cave, and this is in Botswana, Africa. So again, go look it up, Tuxedo Hills, Botswana, Africa. You can go look it up. And again, it's called the Python Cave, all right? Now, inside this cave, that rock formation was about 6 meters, two meters full. And what was really interesting, this was made by human hands. It wasn't some type of technology or something, and was made to look like a reptilian python, and it was there. So here's what I need you to understand. This was never their home, all right? Like I said, it was never their home. They didn't do no cooking in this particular cave. They didn't do anything in that. They actually used this cave to go through, the worship of what they were doing. And this predates, like I said, any other religion. And if you think about that, we're not talking about 100 years. We're not talking about 1,000 years. We're talking 70,000 years. Do the math, 70,000 years of organized, sustained, reptilian worship that was done in this particular cave. And this wasn't a primitive superstition, people. This wasn't some type of superstition that these people had in this particular cave. It was not. This was what I considered, I'm gonna put this word up here, this was control, okay? This was a controlled experiment, and they figured human was already not too smart, when they came here on this planet, and they figured out what they can do to do it. And this is just the beginning, because what they found inside the cave, that we're going to get to, you're going to talk about this. And before I get to what's happening inside this cave, which is going to disturb you, I should say, a little bit, I need you to hold one question in your mind, all right? So you got to hold this question. What kind of intelligence, all right, could maintain 70,000 years of a control system? All right, we're talking 70,000 years. This is before Christ. This is before all this religion. This is before all of this. We know what they worship. I just told you. Now let's talk about how they worship. And this is where it gets good. All right, let's go right into it right now. All right, so this is how they actually worship. We're talking about they had a shaman chamber. There was a shaman chamber here within this cave, which back in there, all right, we're talking about a shaman chamber. Now, once I started going into this, I was like thinking about the Wizard of Oz, right? The behind the curtain. But this is what that shaman spoke behind this cave and what they were in there. We're talking behind the reptilian stone. The archaeologists, they actually found a few things in there. And let's get into this a little deeper as we go into here. All right. This is what the first thing we would say, the voice of the snakes. Okay. Now, what I'm going to really put this in here was this particular shaman voice was the voice of God. Because once again, they heard it from in here, from the mouth. They heard God coming out of the mouth. And this is where the shaman spoke. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky because, and I really mean this, because this one detail that I'm saying right now changed the entire perspective of organized religion. And I just talked about it, right? Or I gave you my comparison to the wizard, right? You remember how he behind the curtains, nobody knew. It was a little bit, go back and look at the Wizard of Oz or the whole meaning of that. And behind that religious stone or behind this reptilian stone, they found, like I said, that hidden chamber, and it was a secret room. Now, here's the deal. This room was, I would say, they said it was worn. It was like real smooth to get back. The meaning it was used repeatedly over and over. We're talking 70,000 years, not from natural erosion, but from use. And so basically, I would say what happened is that they crawled through a passage. That's probably what happened. The shaman or reptilian. Okay, this is just me. The reptilians, we will use shaman right now, but he was carved through, or maybe the shaman was trained, but either way, he crawled through before everybody would get there. And so his voice. Now, you know what was really clever? You know how we looked at the Romans, architect of the Roman Colosseum, how they didn't have speakers and all that, but they can stand there and the way they would speak, 80,000 people could hear him. And today we got to have speaker systems. But when he spoke, his voice resonated through the stone and it came out the reptilian's mouth, like I was saying. So that's pretty interesting when you think about it. And every single person standing in that cave, they heard the reptile speak. Let me let that sink in for a minute. They heard the reptile speak. We're talking before religion, and they found this was the very first place, and there was snake worship. Snake worship. We know the Egyptian pharaohs got the snake on their head. We know, the stories of dragons. We know all of the different stories that came back from the reptilian. But the first thing that I want to point out is I think it's really important that these people manufactured the voice of God. They manufactured the voice of God 70,000 years ago. And now as a UFO investigator, the moment I read that and when I started looking at that peer review, I thought this is not a primitive religion. This is what I will say to you right now is what we deal with today is, and follow me along right here. This is the system. This is the system. Make no mistake about it. This is the system. The system that we're looking at today, the system, a repeatable, scalable system, engineered system for producing belief. And it required architectural knowledge when they put this together, acoustic planning when they put this together, and someone designed the geometry of that chamber specifically so that the voice will carry. They designed this way. And remember, the stories was when the alien reptilians came to Earth, they found that particular type of species or man or Neanderthal before that hominoid or bipedal, whatever, or right before the apes or after the apes, they felt that the man wasn't smart enough. You got to remember, in the serpent, if you go back to some of the biblical stories, was the wise one. Think about it. They come from the skies and people see them coming from the skies. And then all of a sudden, and we're talking about people at this time that all they would do is look at the skies, and they would just dream. And then all of a sudden this light, okay, you hear the stories, come from the sky, it lands, and all of a sudden it's God. It's God. And they said, okay, well, we're going to go along with this. So in my research in the reptilian agenda, and like I said, I'm wearing my shirt, asked me about the reptilian agenda. You can see this in our TikTok store right now if you are on that. But listen, without question, they gave them, or whoever instructed them, gave them the authority to ensure that they were followed without question, number one, for 70,000 years. And so I'm finding the exact pattern, the hidden hand, the issuing of the instructions, staying completely out of sight, which we know they're doing that today. And we're talking about the human face out front. We know that's the system that they have with some of these people that are out front in religion. And then the real intelligence behind it. And we're talking about the shaman was the visible face. And today that evolves into some of our ministers, pastors, priests, you name it, was the new face for this system. So this is the system. You should look at it. We just went from here and here, and now I'm going to take you to some evidence. I'm going to take you to some evidence that I think is really good. But in a moment after that, I'm going to show you a man, a real person, a camera. He was on camera. If you go back to a lot of his stuff with, y'all know who it is, and I'll reveal it anyway. If you know the picture, he was an African elder of knowledge, and he connected it all directly to what he calls star visitors. And we'll get into that right after we go through this evidence. The evidence that we're going to be looking at here is this. And this is real important to really think about it. We're talking, what I would say, I just thought I understood at first what I was looking at. I was like, okay, these some rocks and stuff, until I start reading the peer review. And then this detail came into the way it was framed. It came into like, okay, now we know what's really happening. Follow me when we go down this. And all of these was on a cave floor. All right. Archaeologists found over 13,000 artifacts, and every single one was connected to a ritual. And we're talking the word ritual once again. And, you have to really pay attention to, or we pay attention to, the word. And we talking ritual. All of this was based on ritual, and a ritual, as you will know. And here's the deal. These spearheads wasn't made locally. That was another thing they found out. The stones didn't exist in the Tuxedo region. So they was brought there from all over Africa. So someone brought them there. Someone carried them for hundreds of miles, and then also specifically bringing them to this cave for a specific reason. And they weren't ordinary spearheads either, all right? These were what they considered at the time the best ones. And this particular red ones was really important, and we'll go into that. They were saying that in this case, they only wanted some of the red ones. So these spearheads was burnt. They were ritual sacrifices hundreds and hundreds of miles away. When people brought them in, it was the red ones that they found. Let's just make note of that. It was the red ones. And they didn't use no tools was there, all right? There was no food. So we again, they was carried hundreds of miles from that. And just when I thought I understood everything, I was like, okay, you can understand it. Then that's when I knew there was something else that we want to look at. So there was no functional explanation for that. None of this, no archaeologist publishing the research said so directly, but what they did know, that this was coded instructions. There were some instructions that someone said, bring the red ones, burn the red ones, leave those only, and instruction was followed precisely for 70,000 years. Now, this is my assumption. We know how things change, and you can be in the classroom and, they can put all of us lined up and whisper some in the ear. And by the time we get to the other thing, it changes. Everybody, if you ever done that in school, why would they talk about the red ones? Well, I think over the years, the red ones turn, you guessed it, to this. Now we have what we know is happening today, blood rituals. Because you got to remember, in the beginning, they said that the serpent or whoever came, those light beings came to enlighten mankind. They didn't come to truly say they're going to take over us at some point. So maybe, all right, it started out as a simple red, red spears, it started out, but now it turned into what we would consider blood, and that's something to think about when you, and here's the deal. We're not talking about religion. Make sure as I talk about this more, we're talking, this was a standing order, same as it is now, blood rituals, and issued by something with real authority at that point, told these people to do it. And that's what stopped me then, because I was like, okay, we can put this together. And then when I realized it wasn't archaeologists, this was the evidence of a chain of command. Somebody said, we're going to start this process and we're going to control the world. And if that doesn't shake you a little bit, what we're going to go to next is going to go there, because it's living witness. There was a guy, he talks about that. Hopefully you grasp where we are right now. Put in a chat if you understand when we're talking about blood rituals. In fact, type in a chat, or we want to talk about blood rituals. And I think that'll be a good conversation for us to have, because what I'm about to show you next is someone that the conspiracy research community know well. Everybody kind of know this guy. In fact, let's just put him on the screen and you'll kind of know who we're talking about. And we're going to get into number 4, Credo Mutwa. All right. And, he talks about the star visitors, and, he talks about the fiery visitors. When I saw this for the very first time over the years, when David Eichmann posted that video or that interview for 6-7 hours, and it was very interesting. Now, he passed away in 2020. He was 98 years old. But if you look at the artifacts, this is reptilian stuff. I should have gave you a different picture that zoomed in, but if you go and look this original picture up and you Google on the internet, you're going to see he has all of this reptilian things around his neck and artifacts. Of course, the conspiracy research community, everybody knows him, like I said, from David Icke interview that he talked about on the reptilian agenda, just like I wear my shirts, the reptilian agenda. Now, when he was a young man, one of the things that he talked about was that he performed ceremonies at this same cave. And he said that it was in Tecito Hill. He was physically there. He'd been there, and he was initiated into the knowledge of the site. So he was initiated, and he said it was a map of the Milky Way galaxy and a navigation marker when it came down to all of these things. So Credo Mutwa. Now, let me point out, he also mentioned that the reptile, all right, he mentioned that the reptile equal portal to the stars. Let that sink in for a minute. Credo Mutwa said that the word reptile at the time meant portal to the stars. Why would he say that? Why would a shaman, not a shaman, but he was, I guess so. He's the Zulu shaman, one of the highest ranking there. He now said it was the portal to the stars, or what he called the Milky Way, is what he said. He said the Milky Way, and check this out. Credo Mutwa said the Milky Way is the serpent. Now, you should be asking yourself, like I said before early on, and you can go check this out. Every civilization on the planet, no matter who they was, all worship serpent. We're talking Egyptians, Mesopotamia, India, Africa, Australia, everywhere worship the serpent. Before religion came in, this was before Christ, before Christianity, before Buddha, before Hindu, before all of them worship. And then, as you know, we have that reptilian gene. This is just one of 5 lectures that I'm going to do on this. Now, also, he said that the beings and the sand people were communicating with was the reptilian figure, but he also talked about them being some type of fire visitors. So we can imagine that, because the spacecraft came down and had the flames, and that's probably what they saw. But he didn't stop there. He talked extensively about the reptilian beings interacting. This is where it gets interesting. He said that these reptilian beings actually interact with humans. And now we know also where the DNA issues came from. Plain and simple. But you know what I really want to point out, that what you should grasp by now? It's Africa. It started in Africa. And remember, I did a video, we talked about the Vatican and how they talked about they wearing the mitra, the fish hat, right? And then you go back to the Dogon tribe, and they was talking about the serpent fish god that came out of water. And if you go look at their same symbol of Dagon, is the same thing that the Pope and the Vatican have the same picture. So an African tribe, it started in Africa, then the Pope and all of those people pick it up, or in the Vatican, pick up the same mythology. That there should tell you a little bit. But I know you're probably asking, why does this matter? Because what I'm saying is every culture, and I want to make sure I point this out, every single culture, they all had the same connections. They all were, looking at what we call the stars. All the books was written, and every continent, all of them recorded what they did independently, but it all started there. So it's worth looking at it from there. And that wasn't a coincidence. It was not a coincidence. And this was, again, a shared memory, the collective unconscious memory that we all share, that this really happened. And I haven't told you the best part of this yet. I haven't got to there yet, because what Credo Mutwa described wasn't isolated. We're talking about early civilizations on Earth, and they all had the same stories. They all had the same stories when it came down to it. And it gets a little deeper from there. So now let's kind of see if we can bring it home a little bit. We're going to go here. And this is where I'll get on my soapbox, because we went from here to here. It's just kind of a picture to kind of give you, and we call it the sand creation myth, but it's where mankind was or came from the serpent. It's the same story, every culture. This might be a little blurry but you can see it. Look real close. The serpent, mankind, the snakes, the integration, how they ate men. This thing tells it all. How they ate mankind. We went through the blood rituals. We know what we're talking about with the Epstein files right now, and how they cannibalism and the bloodlines, the 13 bloodlines, how they tie into the original serpent stuff. Just start connecting these dots. But this is the part where a lot of people, came from. But the true, and I think the thing to discuss is, and I'm just going to put it on here, and I know it'll tick a few people off, but we came, from reptilians. Or, we have been modified by them. That's for damn sure. We came from reptilian. We can't deny it. You got people now that are born with tails. If you go back and you look at everybody in here who were born, go look at what you look like at 4 weeks, all right? At 4 weeks, you're going to see you're going to have 4 arms. I mean, not 4 arms. You're going to have arm, legs, and an umbilical cord, and then you're going to have a tail. And where that came from comes generally from what I have here. This is one of my 3D printed things, which is the gray aliens. And the reptilians. And I sell these, by the way. If you put in the chat, you want one of these. You got to paint it yourself. But this is just a 3D printed item saying DNA, reptilians, the grays, and then how they have it in our DNA. But if you say you want one of the 3D printed stuff, I'll give you a link where you can find it. Before we wrap this up, this is one of the things. The sand creation story from the oldest people on Earth, this is what they said, and I want you to kind of take this with you. They said that mankind did not create the serpent, that the serpent created mankind. This is an old sand creation myth. It's worth you looking into, and I know it's going to rattle some ships. I'll give you a few facts that we can kind of go into here to kind of put things in perspective so that you know what I'm talking about, that there is a connection between us and these reptilian beings, okay? And so let me give you some information here that we can kind of go with pretty much. I'll go back a little bit, and let's go back to this slide. Here's the deal. Different languages, all right? Different millennia as we come. Different continents. The same beings, the same description, the same origin story. Once again, this is not mythology. This is described in what we consider historical records. In fact, I think the reptilian picture will be better for you to get a better understanding of what we're talking about here. Something, they said, arrived, something interacted with humans, all right? That's what they was talking about. And at the very beginning, in every civilization, they all encoded the same memory. They all talked about the same stuff. And the question is why? That DNA, which is the DNA helix, what you see here, the two spiral strains, they left this in symbols. It's everywhere. And we've seen it. We've seen it with our own eyes, but somehow it gets to a point that we're like, okay, I'm not going to do that. It's structurally identical to the ancient twin serpent that we talk about, that this appears on every continent. We're talking about the esophagus. We're talking about the caduceus. We're talking about the umbros. There's just so many serpent symbols that we can look at. The Vatican, if you break down the etymology of Vatican, vatis, and con is the word for serpent. Vatis mean prophet, serpent. You know, when you go into the Vatican is, if you go by it, is they have what they call the House of Serpent Prophecy. And if you go look up their Snake Hall, you know, where the Pope speaks from is in the serpent mouth. That's kind of weird, right? The Pope, and I should have put this picture up for you. In fact, I'll put it up right now for you. The same serpent hall picture that I showed you in the beginning of them speaking in a serpent, it just come to me while I'm giving you this part. The Vatican do the same thing. They speak from the serpent mouth. Isn't that kind of coincidence for you that the Vatican speaks from the serpent mouth, and back then in Python Mountain, they spoke from the serpent mouth? That's pretty interesting. And I'm glad we make that discovery together. It just come together. And that's what's happening here. So I just want to kind of leave you with that information to kind of go into what I'm talking about. Hopefully you find this interesting enough to share this. And basically the bottom line is religion, some parts of religion was a control mechanism. It's not spiritual. Someone said that we're going to fool them and become and giving people the voice of God. And as you know, that voice is within you. It's within you. In fact, just to kind of give you our ancestors, if we want to, you know, our ancestors, if we want to think about it, the question mark, which I'm going to put right here, let's just make this question mark. Our ancestors, you know, everything is inverted. So now they put this at the end of sentences so that you begin to ask them for the information so that you can be led and guided. But our ancestors created this symbol. This is the pathway. The question mark is a path, almost like a serpent path. And then that dot is you. That's the bindu, or some people call it in the center there, but that dot is you. And what they mean is that your answers, what you seek is within you. We didn't need no one to give us the voice of God. We didn't need someone to go out there and say, okay, you got to worship this particular place, this, and I'm the only person that God speak to, or, you know, stand up and turn the page this, and everybody read this, and all of a sudden they're giving you that interpretation and you can't understand it yourself. You don't have the connection yourself that God is at 2200 Butterbean Street, you know, wherever this worship is, and it's not within you, it is. So our ancestors wanted us to know the God is there, it's within you. You can seek God within you and communicate with source, and you become, in fact, then you now have that God power, right? So I just want to leave you with that. Let me know if that resonate with you in the chat. Let me know by sharing it. And once again, I have more stuff. I do get into a lot of reptilian things. I got about 5 or 6 that'll take us deeper into reptilians. And of course, symbolism. If you just saw the last video, we was talking about the dollar bill. And if you didn't watch all of that, if you're watching on TikTok, go to the YouTube, you can see the full video. And just let me know where we're going with this. And if you're getting any value in this, and I'll continue as the symbolizer, breaking things down for you. And once again, I appreciate you. We do have the symbolizer method. And the symbolizer method is something that I teach how you can see the unseen, read between headlines, read between what is happening. It's not just a study. This is something that everybody should be able to begin to want to learn. And so you can go to symbolizermethod.com. But anyway, love you guys, and I will see you on the next video so that you know we're talking about those reptilians, that we know the reptilians is here. They are here, all right? And they've been here. And they walk among us. They've been here and they walk among us every day. And you could be a reptilian, you just didn't know it or got the DNA. But that don't mean they're all bad. And if you are a reptilian, you're watching this, reach out. We're trying to make good alliances here with truth versus authority. And that's what we're doing. See y'all on